A millionaire dated a waitress just to humiliate her every day. When he invited her to a luxury party at his mansion, everyone was speechless when they saw her. Seattle's downtown buzzed with the familiar hum of ambition, hurried footsteps on wet sidewalks, the aroma of coffee drifting through the crisp morning air, and conversations blending into a chaotic symphony. In the heart of this urban rhythm, Ethan Carter stepped out of his black Porsche. Adjusting the cuffs of his tailored shirt, his expensive cologne mingled with the coffee-scented breeze as he smirked, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. Life, to Ethan, was a predictable game. A stage where he held the strings, and others merely danced to his tune. His phone vibrated. A message from Marcus, his closest friend and enabler. Bored yet? Need new entertainment? Ethan chuckled softly. Boredom had become his constant companion. Parties, luxury cars, and expensive vacations no longer satisfied him. People were his playground. Manipulating emotions was the only thrill that remained. The aroma of roasted beans drew him toward a small cafe across the street, Emily's Corner. He arched a brow. The place was modest, with faded blue awnings and wooden chairs that wobbled on the uneven pavement. Not his usual scene, but maybe this time, the unexpected could amuse him. As he pushed the door open, a brass bell chimed overhead. The warmth inside was a stark contrast to the sterile luxury he was used to. The walls were lined with shelves of books, old vinyl records, and framed photos of customers sharing smiles over steaming mugs. Ethan's gaze shifted to the counter, and stopped. There she was. Her hair, the color of dark honey, was tied back in a loose ponytail, with strands escaping to frame her face. She wasn't conventionally stunning, but there was something disarmingly genuine about her. She moved behind the counter with effortless ease, chatting with a middle-aged man as she handed him a cappuccino. "Thank you, Emily," the man said. "Anytime, Mr. Davis," she replied, her voice warm and familiar. Ethan tilted his head. There it was, that spark of curiosity he hadn't felt in months. He approached the counter, his presence immediately drawing attention from the few patrons nearby. "Good morning," she greeted, offering a polite smile. "What can I get for you?" He studied her name tag, Emily Thompson. The simplicity of her presence intrigued him. He leaned casually on the counter. "What's your best drink?" "That depends. Are you more of a bold and adventurous type or a smooth and comforting kind of guy?" His lips curved into a calculated grin. "I guess you'll have to find out." She laughed softly. "All right, I'll surprise you." As she turned to prepare his drink, Ethan observed her closely. No pretense, no attempt to impress. She probably had no idea who he was. No whispers about his family's hotel empire. No cautious deference. He could sense it already. Her honesty, and to Ethan, honesty was just another vulnerability to exploit. The coffee appeared in front of him minutes later, a delicate swirl of caramel on the foam. "One signature caramel macchiato," she said. "Let me know what you think." He took a sip, letting the sweetness dance on his tongue. "Impressive, though I bet you make it this good for everyone." "Well, I try," she answered, meeting his gaze with an unaffected sincerity. He placed a crisp $50 bill on the counter. "Keep the change." Her eyes flicked to the large tip. "That's way too much. Consider it an investment. I have a feeling I'll be back." He turned and walked out. Not bothering to look back, he knew the hook was set. Later that night, in the dim glow of his penthouse, Ethan swirled bourbon in a crystal glass while scrolling through his phone. He found her within minutes. Emily Thompson, with a handful of public photos from various charity events. No mention of wealthy parents. No luxury tags. Just a simple girl who loved books, baking, and helping out at the local community center. "Perfect," Marcus called. Ethan answered on speaker. "Found a new game, huh?" Marcus asked, amusement in his voice. "Maybe," Ethan said, sipping his drink. "She's different. Different or just naive?" Ethan smirked. "What's the difference?" The next morning, he returned to Emily's Corner, stepping inside with a confidence that made heads turn. Emily was wiping down a table when she noticed him. "You're back," she said, surprise lighting her face. "Told you it was an investment?" he replied smoothly. "So, what time do you get off today?" Emily hesitated, her fingers tightening slightly around the cloth. "Why?" Because I thought maybe you'd like to see what Seattle looks like from a rooftop with a view. She smiled, but there was a flicker of caution in her eyes. I don't usually go out with customers, then make an exception. After a pause, she nodded. Okay, I finish at 5. Ethan's smile widened. This was going to be fun. Ethan Carter sat behind the wheel of his car, drumming his fingers against the steering wheel as the sun dipped beneath the Seattle skyline. The anticipation of the evening ahead brought a rare flicker of excitement to his otherwise jaded expression. Emily Thompson, the seemingly unremarkable barista, had piqued his curiosity, and more importantly, his appetite for control. He'd seen it in her eyes, a quiet strength, a stubborn dignity, and that made the game all the more intriguing. At precisely 5 o'clock, she stepped out of the cafe, wiping her hands on a towel she tucked into her apron pocket. Her hair was loosely braided, her attire simple, jeans, sneakers, and a gray sweater that did nothing to hide her natural elegance. Ethan's car, sleek and predatory, idled by the curb. When she spotted him, she hesitated for a moment before walking over. He leaned across the passenger seat and pushed the door open. Right on time, he said, flashing a grin. I said I would be, she answered, slipping into the leather seat. Her fingers ran nervously along the seam of her jeans as she buckled her seatbelt. Seat comfortable? He asked as he shifted into gear. Yeah, she said softly, glancing at the immaculate interior. I don't think I've ever been in a car this nice. Ethan chuckled. It's just a car. Wait until you see the view. The ride to the rooftop lounge was accompanied by light conversation, mostly Ethan talking about himself, his family's hotel empire, and the places he'd traveled. Emily listened politely, occasionally offering small observations or short anecdotes from her own life. Ethan barely registered them. For him, this was the warm-up act before the real entertainment began. When they arrived at the rooftop bar, the view was spectacular. The city stretched beneath them, glittering like a sea of stars. Emily walked toward the glass barrier, her eyes widening. Wow, she breathed. Not bad, huh? Ethan stood beside her, watching her reaction with amusement. It's beautiful. I've lived here for years and never knew this existed. That's the thing about privilege, he said casually. It shows you perspectives most people never see. She turned to look at him, her smile fading slightly. Is that what this is about? Privilege? Not at all, Ethan said smoothly. It's about sharing an experience. He gestured toward the skyline. Most people spend their lives on the ground, never imagining views like this are possible. I like showing people other perspectives. Emily held his gaze for a moment. Sometimes the ground has its own beauty, she said softly. Ethan's smile faltered briefly, then he chuckled. You're right, but tonight, let's enjoy the sky. A waiter appeared with a bottle of wine, and Ethan ordered without consulting her. Emily arched an eyebrow but said nothing. As the evening progressed, Ethan shifted into charm mode. Compliments about her smile, light jokes about the cafe, casual remarks about his lavish lifestyle. Emily laughed at some of his comments, but Ethan noticed her smile never quite reached her eyes. Tell me something, Emily, he said after their plates had been cleared. Why work as a barista? Someone like you. You're smart, capable. You could do better. Her posture stiffened. What do you mean by someone like me? He gave an exaggerated shrug. I just mean, you seem too intelligent to spend your days serving coffee. Maybe serving coffee isn't about intelligence, she said. Maybe it's about connecting with people, understanding them, learning from them. Sure, Ethan said, leaning back. But let's be honest. The people who come into that cafe, they're not exactly changing the world. Her jaw tightened. Everyone changes the world in their own way. Ethan tilted his head, intrigued by her resistance. Is that what you believe, that everyone matters equally? I know they do, she said, voice steady. That's idealistic. Or maybe it's just true, she countered, standing up. Thanks for the view, Ethan. I should get going. Whoa, relax. Ethan stood as well, forcing a light chuckle. I didn't mean to offend you. Emily hesitated. Sometimes it feels like that's exactly what you're trying to do. Look, he said, stepping closer, his voice softer now. I'm not used to conversations like this. Usually, people just laugh at my jokes and move on. Maybe you need better jokes. she said, her tone lighter but guarded. Ethan smiled, recognizing the olive branch. I'll work on it. He extended his arm. Let me at least give you a ride home. She hesitated before nodding. The ride back was quiet. When he pulled up in front of her apartment, she unbuckled her seatbelt. Thanks for tonight, she said. Anytime, Ethan replied. We should do this again. She gave a non-committal nod and stepped out. As she walked up the steps, he watched her closely. There was a challenge here, one he hadn't expected. He pulled out his phone and texted Marcus. She's different. This might actually be fun. Then he smiled to himself. The game had officially begun. The following week passed like a well-rehearsed performance. Ethan appeared at Emily's corner every morning, leaning against the counter with an easy smile as she handed him his caramel macchiato. Their conversations grew longer, more playful. But beneath the lighthearted exchanges, Emily sensed something elusive in his gaze, an amusement she couldn't quite place. Still, she ignored the instinct, convincing herself that maybe, just maybe, there was more to Ethan Carter than his polished exterior suggested. On Friday morning, he leaned on the counter as she rang up his order. So, what do you say we step it up a notch? Step what up? She asked, wiping her hands on a cloth. A dinner, tomorrow night, somewhere nice? He smiled, the kind that made most women blush. I promise. No talk about coffee or privilege, just us. Emily hesitated. Her instincts whispered caution, but her curiosity spoke louder. Okay, she said, sliding his coffee toward him. Tomorrow night. The next evening, Ethan arrived at her apartment in a sleek, black luxury sedan. When she opened the door, his eyes traveled the length of her figure. She wore a simple navy dress that hugged her slender frame, her hair cascading over her shoulders in soft waves. You look unexpected, he said with a crooked smile. Thanks, she replied, unsure if it was a compliment or an insult. The restaurant he chose was the most exclusive in Seattle. Dim lighting, marble floors, and tables adorned with crystal glasses and silk napkins. Emily had never been in a place like that before, and her posture stiffened when she noticed the curious glances from other patrons. Relax, Ethan said, placing a hand on the small of her back as they walked to their table. You belong here, sort of. She bit the inside of her cheek, but forced a smile as they sat down. Ethan ordered a bottle of wine without consulting her and immediately launched into stories of his lavish escapades. Yacht parties, weekends in Monaco, extravagant purchases made on a whim. Emily listened politely, occasionally sipping her wine. When the waiter returned, Ethan barely glanced at the menu. We'll have the lobster bisque to start, and the Wagyu filet, medium rare for both of us. Emily blinked. Actually, I was thinking pasta. Ethan chuckled softly. Trust me, the pasta here isn't worth it. Go with the steak. She forced a tight smile. Okay, steak it is. As the evening progressed, Ethan shifted into performance mode, turning his charm into a tool of subtle dominance. His voice grew louder, his laughter more pronounced, drawing attention to their table. Emily shifted uncomfortably under the weight of the stares. So, Emily, he said, swirling his wine, tell me, what's the hardest part about being a barista? The word dripped with condescension. Emily straightened in her chair. Well, it's definitely not the customers. Most of them are pretty great. Ethan chuckled. Except for the ones who order caramel macchiatos every day, right? Especially those, she said lightly, though her smile faltered. He leaned forward. No, really. I mean, come on. It must get boring. Grinding beans, wiping tables, listening to people whine about their milk foam. Don't you ever wish for more? Who says I don't have more? She countered. Well, you're here with me, he said with a sly grin, raising his glass. That's a start. The table behind them snickered. Emily realized then that Ethan wasn't just entertaining himself. He was performing for an audience. She set her glass down. I think I'm ready to go. Come on, don't be so sensitive, Ethan said, leaning back. It's all in good fun. Good fun for who? She asked. Standing, her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her purse. Emily, sit down, he said, voice low but firm. Have a nice night, Ethan. She turned and walked toward the exit, feeling the heat of the stairs on her back. Outside, the cold air stung her cheeks as she wrapped her arms around herself. The hum of traffic blurred the sounds of muffled laughter still echoing in her mind. Moments later, Ethan appeared beside her, his steps quick and determined. "Wait," he said, grabbing her elbow. "You're overreacting." She jerked her arm free. "Overreacting, you humiliated me in front of those people." "I was just teasing," he said, exasperated. "It's how I am. I didn't mean anything by it." "You made me feel small," she said softly, voice shaking. "Why?" Ethan hesitated, then gave a half shrug. "I guess, because I can." The honesty stung more than the humiliation. Emily stepped back, her eyes burning. "That says more about you than it does about me." For the first time. Ethan looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Look, let me make it up to you." "No thanks," she said, turning away. She walked to the nearest corner, praying he wouldn't follow. He didn't. When she reached her apartment, she collapsed onto the couch and closed her eyes, heart pounding. The worst part wasn't what Ethan had said or done. It was the feeling that this was far from over. Emily sat by her apartment window the next morning, a cup of coffee cooling in her hands. The faint hum of the city stirred in the background, but her thoughts were locked on the events of the previous night. Ethan Carter had peeled back his polished veneer just enough for her to see the hollow space underneath. His cruel amusement, his need to control and belittle, it all simmered beneath his charm like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. She had seen that kind of emptiness before. The memory hit her like cold water. Her father's voice, sharp and demanding, commanding the household with an iron will. He had never raised a hand to her, but his words left marks that no one could see. "We don't show weakness, Emily. Kindness is a liability. Dignity is earned through dominance." The lessons came wrapped in cold glares and tense dinners in cavernous dining rooms where even the chandeliers seemed afraid to sway. Her mother, by contrast, had been a quiet force of warmth. Grace Thompson had grown up wealthy, but never forgot what it meant to treat others with compassion. Emily remembered the way her mother would sit on the kitchen floor with her after a long day, baking cookies and singing off-key to old jazz records. "The world will always test your kindness," her mother had said once. "But don't let it break you. Kindness, my love, is your greatest strength." Her parents had died when Emily was 10, a car accident on a snowy highway in Vermont. The headlines had screamed about the Thompson family's tragic loss, speculating endlessly about the inheritance left behind. The fortune, managed by a trustee, was supposed to mold Emily into the next heir of the Thompson empire, but she'd refused to let her life be dictated by a bank balance. When she turned 18, she moved across the country, changed her last name from Thompson to Thompson Rivers for privacy, and found a simple job at a cafe in Seattle. She'd built her life from scratch. No handouts, no press, no spotlight, and now, for reasons she couldn't quite explain, she'd allowed Ethan Carter to pull her into his world of games. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Sarah. "Brunch. You need some girlfriend therapy." Emily exhaled and typed back. "Yes, cafe on 5th and 30. 30 minutes later, Emily stirred a spoon through her cappuccino as Sarah Monroe sat across from her, arms crossed and brows raised. Sarah had been her closest confidant since Emily moved to Seattle, sharp-tongued, protective, and allergic to bullshit. "So," Sarah said, tapping a manicured nail against her cup, "tell me why you went to dinner with that guy after everything you told me about him." Emily winced. "I guess I wanted to believe I was wrong." Sarah shook her head. "Girl, he's not a mystery. He's a walking red flag in a tailored suit. What did he do this time?" Emily recounted the dinner in careful detail. The condescending remarks, the public humiliation, the dismissive apology. Sarah's expression darkened with every word. "Unbelievable," Sarah muttered. "He treated you like a toy in front of his friends. He thinks you're beneath him." "I know," Emily said, her voice tight. "But there's something off about him. I can't explain it. He's so used to people playing along like they're just pieces on his board. I want to know why. Why does it matter? He's a spoiled narcissist. Let him rot in his penthouse." Emily's gaze drifted toward the window. Maybe people like Ethan need to be shown that they don't own the world." Sarah tilted her head. "What's going through that brain of yours?" Emily gave a small smile. "I don't know yet, but I'm not done with this," Sarah groaned. "Oh no, you're planning something." "Not exactly," Emily said, finishing her cappuccino. "But I know one thing. I won't let him win." Ethan Carter, meanwhile, sat at a private booth in his penthouse lounge. Nursing a glass of scotch, Marcus sprawled across from him, laughing as Ethan recounted the previous night's events. "Dude, you are savage," Marcus said, shaking his head. "She actually walked out on you." Ethan smirked, though the memory of Emily's expression lingered like a bad aftertaste. "Yeah, didn't see that coming. That's what makes it fun, though. You'll break her eventually. They all break. She's different," Ethan muttered, more to himself than to Marcus. "Different how? She's just another cafe girl." "That's what I thought. But she didn't cry, didn't beg. She just walked away like she knew she didn't need me." Marcus snorted. "Come on, man. Everyone needs you. That's the fun part." Ethan swirled the amber liquid in his glass, watching the way it clung to the sides. "She said I made her feel small." "Yeah, and that's the game." Ethan didn't respond. The game had always been about control, about watching the light fade from someone's eyes when they realized how insignificant they were to him. But Emily hadn't played her role. She'd left the game before he could declare himself the winner. That intrigued him and infuriated him. That night, Emily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her mother's words echoed through her mind. "The world will test your kindness." Ethan Carter had tested it, but she wasn't broken. Her phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number. "You surprised me last night. I'm not done with you yet." "Hey." She sat up, heart racing. The game wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Emily sat at the counter of Emily's corner the next morning, turning her phone over and over in her hand. The message from Ethan glared at her like a challenge she couldn't ignore. "You surprised me last night. I'm not done with you yet." The words weren't a simple text. They were a declaration, a warning wrapped in curiosity. She should have blocked the number, deleted the message, and moved on with her life. But instead, she sat there, the phone warm in her palm, wondering what came next. "Earth to Emily," said a familiar voice. She looked up. Sarah leaned on the counter, an eyebrow arched. "You've been staring at that phone like it's about to explode. Let me guess, Ethan." Emily sighed. "Yeah. Why are you even giving that man brain space? Seriously, Em, you're smarter than this." Emily rubbed her forehead. "I know, I can't shake the feeling that this is bigger than some jerk trying to mess with me. He doesn't just play games. He lives for them. And I want to understand why." Sarah groaned. "You're going full therapist now." "Maybe." Emily managed a weak smile. "Or maybe I just want to be the person who shows him he doesn't control everyone." Sarah sighed dramatically. "Fine. Just don't let him get in your head too deep, guys like him. They don't stop until they've torn you apart for sport." The bell above the cafe door jingled. Emily glanced up and froze. Ethan Carter strolled in, all effortless confidence and tailored perfection. A navy suit, no tie, hairstyled to perfection. His eyes found hers immediately, and the corner of his mouth lifted in a knowing smile. "Speak of the devil," Sarah muttered under her breath. Ethan walked to the counter, resting his elbow casually on the surface. "Good morning, Emily." "Morning," she said evenly. He glanced at Sarah. "Oh, hey. You're the best friend, right, Stephanie?" "Sarah," she said, voice sharp. "Right, Sarah." He turned his gaze back to Emily. "So, are you always this quiet in the mornings? Or am I getting the cold treatment?" Emily forced herself to stay composed. "What do you want, Ethan?" "Just coffee, caramel macchiato, you remember?" He winked. She turned to make the drink, heart pounding. His presence filled the space like an invisible rope tightening around her as she frothed the milk. She heard him talking to Sarah. "You don't like me very much," Ethan said. Sarah scoffed. "You don't make it easy." "Fair," Ethan said with a chuckle. "But Emily likes me, or at least she's curious. That counts for something." Emily set the drink in front of him. "Here you go," she said. He wrapped his hands around the cup but didn't drink. "I was thinking, how about a redo?" "A redo?" she asked. "Yeah, dinner, no games, no jokes, just two people getting to know each other." Sarah made a disgusted sound. "You've got to be kidding." Ethan ignored her, focusing solely on Emily. "What do you say?" Emily hesitated. Everything about Ethan screamed danger, but something deeper whispered that she needed to see where this would go. "Okay," she said finally. "One dinner? Great," Ethan said, flashing a victorious smile. "I'll pick you up at 7. Dress? Nice." He slid a $50 bill across the counter, turned, and left without another word. Sarah groaned. God help you. The following night, Ethan arrived in a charcoal gray Maserati. When Emily opened her door, his gaze swept over her. She wore a black dress with a modest neckline, her hair in soft waves. His smile shifted, losing its usual arrogance for a moment. "You look impressive," he said. "Thanks," she replied, stepping into the car. The ride was smooth, filled with polite conversation about music and travel. He didn't mention her job, her clothes, or make any of his usual passive-aggressive remarks. Emily found herself lowering her guard slightly when they pulled up in front of the restaurant. However, her stomach tightened. It wasn't just any restaurant. It was the Regal, one of the most exclusive dining spots in the city, frequented by Seattle's elite. "I thought you said no games," she said, eyeing the valet who rushed to open her door. "No games," Ethan said, offering his hand. "Just good food and good company." Inside, crystal chandeliers cast soft light over velvet booths. Waiters in crisp uniforms glided between tables. The maitre d' greeted Ethan by name and led them to a table near the center of the room. As they sat, Emily became aware of the curious glances from nearby patrons. Whispers drifted through the air. She recognized one woman from a society magazine, another man from a business article about tech billionaires. Ethan noticed her discomfort and leaned closer. "Relax," he said softly. "You belong here." The waiter arrived, and Ethan ordered for both of them without asking her preference. Again, this time, she didn't object. She wanted to see where this night would go. Midway through dinner, the atmosphere shifted. A man from a nearby table approached, tall, blonde, and dressed in an impeccable suit. He clapped Ethan on the shoulder. "Carter," the man said, smirking. "Didn't expect to see you here tonight." "And who's your guest?" Emily's smile tightened. Ethan's jaw flexed almost imperceptibly. "This is Emily Thompson," he said. The man's smirk widened. "Thompson, huh? Cute, and she's a barista, right?" Emily froze. The man's voice dripped with condescension. And she knew without question, that Ethan had set this up. Her gaze shifted to Ethan's face, searching for a sign that he would defend her. Instead, he leaned back, sipping his wine. "Yeah," he said casually. "She makes a mean cup of coffee." The man laughed. "Well, enjoy it while it lasts, Carter. I hear baristas don't stick around when the tips dry up." Emily's chest tightened. She placed her napkin on the table, stood up, and turned toward the exit. The laughter followed her. Outside, the cool night air stung her face. Her hands trembled with rage. Moments later, she heard Ethan's footsteps. "Emily, wait." She spun around. "That was your idea of no games, bringing me here so your friends could laugh at me." "It wasn't like that," Ethan said, though his smirk betrayed him. "Yes, it was." Her voice shook. "And the worst part, you think it makes you stronger, but all it does is make you small." She turned away, leaving him standing on the sidewalk, his mask of control cracking for the first time. The rain tapped softly against Emily's apartment window, the muted rhythm matching the dull ache in her chest. She sat on the couch, legs curled beneath her, phone resting on the coffee table. The memory of the previous night played in a relentless loop in her mind. Ethan's smug smile as his friend mocked her, the laughter that followed her out the door like a shadow. She had walked away with her head high, but the humiliation lingered, sharp and unyielding. Sarah's voice crackled through the speakerphone. "I swear, Em, if I see that man on the street, I'll throw my coffee at his face." Emily managed a half smile. "Don't waste good coffee." "It'd be worth it," Sarah shot back. "The audacity, he set you up deliberately. And you saw how he just sat there while that moron made those comments. Classic rich boy move." Emily rubbed her temples. "Yeah, I know. Then why do you sound like you're considering giving him another chance?" Emily hesitated. "I'm not, I want to understand why." "Why?" Sarah's tone sharpened. "Who cares why? He's a manipulative, arrogant jerk. That's all you need to know. Emily chewed her bottom lip. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her memory. People who hurt others are often the ones most afraid of being hurt themselves. Emily didn't want to fix Ethan. That wasn't her job. But she also couldn't shake the feeling that beneath the layers of arrogance, something deeper was broken. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I have a feeling this isn't over," Sarah groaned. "I'm telling you, you're playing with fire." "Maybe," Emily murmured, "but I'm not the one who's going to get burned." She hung up before Sarah could protest further and stared at the rain sliding down the glass like tears. Ethan Carter thought he was untouchable. Maybe it was time someone showed him that no amount of money or charm could shield him from the truth. Ethan Carter stood in his penthouse, staring at his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. The Seattle skyline glittered beneath him, and his phone buzzed on the marble countertop behind him. He let it ring. He already knew who it was. Marcus, no doubt wanting to rehash the hilarious moment at the restaurant. The amusement that night had been fleeting. Ethan had seen Emily's eyes when she walked away. The disappointment, the clarity. For a moment, it unsettled him. She hadn't been angry in a way he was used to. Anger? He could handle. Anger meant someone still cared. But that look, it was like she'd already seen through him and found nothing worth staying for. He picked up the glass of whiskey on the table and took a slow sip. The game was supposed to be fun. But now it felt different. Emily Thompson wasn't just some woman to entertain him. She was a puzzle he couldn't solve. And the thought of her walking away for good gnawed at the edges of his mind. His phone buzzed again. A text this time. He glanced at the screen. "I hope you enjoyed your little game, because now it's my turn." Ethan's brows shot up. His pulse quickened. "Emily? So she wasn't running away after all?" He smiled, a sharp, wolfish grin, and typed back, "Looking forward to it." 2 days passed without any sign of Ethan, and Emily tried to focus on her usual routine. She poured coffee, wiped counters, and exchanged pleasantries with regular customers. But every time the door chimed, her heart skipped a beat. Waiting for Ethan felt like watching for a storm on the horizon. Finally, on Wednesday afternoon, the bell rang, and there he was. Ethan stepped inside, wearing a dark sweater and jeans instead of his usual business armor. He looked different, less polished, more approachable, but Emily knew better. She straightened behind the counter. "Coffee?" she asked, voice casual. "Sure," he said, sliding onto the stool. "Make it strong. I have a feeling I'll need it." She prepared the drink without another word and placed it in front of him. Ethan wrapped his hands around the cup but didn't drink. He just watched her, eyes unreadable. "So," he said after a long pause. "Your turn, huh?" "That's what I said. What's your plan? Humiliate me in front of my friends. Post some exposé about me online." Emily leaned on the counter. "You think humiliation is the worst thing that can happen to you?" His smile faltered. "Isn't it? Humiliation fades," she said softly. "But realizing you're empty inside, that lasts." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You think you know me?" "I know your type," she replied. "You push people down so you don't have to face what's missing in yourself." For a moment, something flickered in his expression, something raw and vulnerable. Then it was gone, replaced by his trademark smirk. "Sounds like you've got me all figured out, so what now?" "You'll see," she said, taking his empty cup. "Enjoy the suspense." Ethan laughed softly as he stood. "You know," he said, adjusting his jacket, "most people run when I play with them. I'm not most people." His smile sharpened. "No, you're not." He turned and left, leaving behind the faint scent of his cologne and the crackling tension of a game that neither of them wanted to lose. That night, Emily opened her laptop and pulled up an article she'd bookmarked weeks ago. Carter Hotels, Legacy or Illusion. The journalist had subtly questioned Ethan's leadership, noting that his father had built the empire, and Ethan merely maintained it. Emily read the article twice. If Ethan thrived on control, maybe the best way to reach him was to show him what life felt like without it. She closed the laptop and leaned back, mind spinning with possibilities. Ethan Carter had started this game thinking she was just another pawn. He had no idea she was a queen in disguise. The sky over Seattle turned a muted gray as the city prepared for another stretch of cold rain. Emily sat on a bench in Gasworks Park, the damp air clinging to her skin as she watched the rusted remnants of the old gas plant in the distance. Her phone rested in her lap, open to a news article about Ethan Carter's upcoming Charity Gala, an event designed to showcase Carter Hotel's commitment to community development. The irony wasn't lost on her. A man who thrived on belittling others was now playing philanthropist. The gala was set for Saturday night, and according to the guest list she'd found online, the city's elite would be in attendance. Emily tapped her phone, her mind racing. If Ethan wanted a game, she'd meet him on his home turf. But this time, she wouldn't play by his rules. "You're really going through with this, aren't you?" Sarah's voice broke through Emily's thoughts. Emily turned to see her friend walking across the grass, 2 steaming cups of coffee in hand. She handed one to Emily and sat beside her. "I am," Emily said, wrapping her hands around the warmth of the cup. "If I walk away, he learns nothing. He just keeps doing it to someone else." Sarah sighed. "And what exactly is the plan here? Go to his fancy party and..." "What? Confront him in front of all those people?" "Not exactly. I need him to confront himself." Sarah frowned. "And you think that's possible?" Emily exhaled slowly. "I guess we'll find out." Ethan stood in his penthouse, scrolling through the gala's guest list with one hand while nursing a glass of scotch with the other. Everything was going according to plan. The event would boost the company's reputation and, more importantly, his image. His PR team had ensured the right reporters would be there, the right influencers, the right business moguls, all ready to admire Ethan Carter, the young heir who cared deeply about the city he so rarely engaged with. He glanced at his phone, scrolling through his messages. Nothing from Emily. 3 days of silence after her cryptic, "Enjoy the suspense." He hated not knowing what she was thinking. Emily Thompson wasn't like the others. She didn't simper or try to impress him. She challenged him. And that both infuriated and intrigued him. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. Ethan answered. "Hey," Marcus said, laughter in his voice. "You ready for the big night? I heard half the city's buzzing about it." "Yeah, it'll be a spectacle," Ethan replied. "And our favorite barista. Think she'll show?" Ethan's grip tightened around the glass. "I don't know, but if she does," his smile twisted, "we'll give her a night to remember." Saturday night arrived with the kind of cold drizzle that made Seattle glisten under its streetlights. The Carter estate in the hills above the city stood illuminated like a fortress of glass and marble. Luxury cars lined the curved driveway, and valets dressed in black hurried to open doors for the evening's guests. Inside, champagne flowed. Laughter echoed and classical music drifted through the grand hall. Ethan Carter moved through the crowd like a king surveying his court. He shook hands, posed for photos, and gave practiced smiles to socialites who complimented his generous heart. But his mind wasn't in the room. It was waiting for Emily. He was turning toward the bar when the room shifted. Like the collective intake of 100 breaths, he followed the ripple of attention to the grand staircase. There she was. Emily descended the marble steps wearing a deep emerald dress that clung to her figure with understated elegance. Her hair, normally in a casual ponytail, cascaded down her back in soft waves. The emerald pendant around her neck caught the chandelier's light, sending shards of green across the polished floor. She walked slowly, eyes scanning the room, until they met Ethan's. His chest tightened. She was stunning. But more than that, she was poised, unshaken by the curious whispers that followed her. "Who is she?" a woman near the bar whispered. "I heard she's just a barista," said another. "No," said an older man with silver hair. "That's the Thompson girl. I'd recognize that necklace anywhere. Her parents were old money and very, very rich." Ethan froze. Thompson. He ran the name through his memory. Thompson Enterprises, real estate, old East Coast lineage. The family had vanished from society after a car crash years ago. Their daughter, the heir, Emily Thompson. Ethan's shock was interrupted by the sound of her footsteps on the marble floor. She stopped in front of him. "Good evening, Ethan," she said, voice calm. You're a Thompson." His mind raced to catch up. "You've been playing me this whole time. I told you. You're not the only one who knows how to play games." He forced a smile. "Clever. But coming here won't change anything. That's where you're wrong," she said, stepping closer. "Tonight isn't about me. It's about you." She turned toward the crowd, her her voice carrying across the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention." The room fell into a curious hush. "You all know Ethan Carter," Emily continued. "Charming, wealthy, a generous philanthropist." Her smile hardened. "But what you don't know is the game he plays with people like me, people he thinks are beneath him." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. "I came here tonight because Ethan thought I was just a nobody," Emily said. "A barista, someone he could humiliate for fun. And he tried, more than once." Her eyes met his. "But here's the thing about people like Ethan. They mistake cruelty for power." Gasps spread like wildfire. Ethan felt the ground tilt beneath him. "That's enough," he said through clenched teeth, stepping toward her. Emily didn't flinch. "You wanted a game, Ethan. Well, here it is. Everyone sees you now, not the polished image, the real you." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, leaving him standing in the center of the crowd, exposed, vulnerable, and for the first time in his life, unsure of what came next. The night air was sharp against Emily's skin as she stepped out of the Carter estate. Her heels clicked against the stone driveway, echoing in the sudden silence that followed the chaos inside. She didn't stop until she reached the valet station, where the attendant scrambled to find her ride. Her chest heaved with the adrenaline of what she had just done, confronting Ethan Carter in front of his meticulously curated audience. As the car pulled up, Emily slid into the back seat and exhaled. Her heart still racing, she adjusted the emerald pendant around her neck, the one her mother had given her just weeks before the accident. "The truth always shines through," her mother had said as she clasped the necklace around her daughter's neck, "even when people try to bury it." Tonight, that truth had shattered Ethan Carter's carefully constructed facade. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. She ignored it. She didn't need to check to know who it was. Ethan wouldn't let a public humiliation pass without a response. The game they'd started was now in full swing, and Emily had just made her biggest move. The car stopped in front of her apartment. She thanked the driver and walked inside. Locking the door behind her, the silence of her small living room wrapped around her like a protective cocoon. Kicking off her shoes, she sank onto the couch and stared at the phone, which buzzed again and again. Finally, she swiped the screen. 6 missed calls. Ethan Carter new message. Ethan Carter. "You think this is over? It's just beginning." Emily's pulse spiked. She tossed the phone onto the coffee table and leaned back, gripping the pendant for reassurance. This was exactly what she had expected. Ethan Carter wasn't the kind of man to retreat quietly. He'd been raised to win, to dominate, to never lose face. And tonight, she had stolen that sense of superiority from him in front of the people he most sought to impress. The clock read 2:43 a.m. when she finally drifted into a restless sleep. Across the city, Ethan stood on the balcony of his penthouse, the cool wind failing to calm his racing mind. His phone lay on the table beside him, Emily's name glowing on the screen from the unanswered call log. He had built his identity around power, around the certainty that no one could challenge him and walk away unscathed. He'd seen women try before, women who cried, begged, and eventually faded into the background like disposable props. But Emily Thompson, she hadn't crumbled. She hadn't even flinched. Instead, she'd stood there in front of his friends, business partners, and the media, tearing apart the carefully cultivated image he'd spent years crafting. And she had done it with the same calm confidence she carried while serving coffee. He gripped the edge of the balcony, knuckles whitening. "She doesn't get to win," he muttered to himself. His phone buzzed. "Marcus, what the hell happened tonight, man?" Marcus demanded when Ethan answered. "That was brutal. People are still talking about it. Carter Hotels is trending. And not in a good way." "Yeah, I know," Ethan said, grinding his teeth. "What's the move?" "Damage control." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'll handle it." "And what about her, the coffee girl?" "Emily Thompson isn't just a coffee girl," Ethan said through clenched teeth. "She's a Thompson." Marcus whistled softly. "Wait, Thompson?" "Like Thompson Enterprises. Old money. The ones who disappeared after the accident." "That's the one." Marcus chuckled darkly. "Damn, so she played you. Hard." Ethan didn't respond. He didn't need Marcus pointing out what he already knew. "What now?" Marcus asked. "We hit back." Ethan said, his voice cold. "She wants a game. Let's raise the stakes." Emily woke to the smell of stale coffee and the dull ache of anxiety in her chest. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, casting soft lines across the wooden floor. She sat up and reached for her phone. 7 new messages. Ethan Carter. She hesitated before opening them. "You think you know me, Emily, but you don't. Last night was a mistake. You don't belong in my world. Or maybe you do, maybe you're just like me. Enjoy the spotlight while it lasts. I'm not done. See you soon." Her breath caught in her throat. The words weren't overt threats, but the underlying message was clear. Ethan wasn't going to let this go. She dressed quickly, throwing on jeans and a hoodie, and headed to Emily's corner. The familiar scent of coffee beans grounded her as she stepped inside. Sarah was already behind the counter, eyes widening when she saw Emily. "You're a damn celebrity," Sarah said. Sarah, pushing a newspaper across the counter. Page 3. Emily's stomach turned as she saw the headline. "Cafe Girl Stuns Carter Empire. Heiress or Opportunist." The article detailed her family's fortune, her job as a barista, and the public humiliation she delivered to Ethan Carter. It speculated about her motivations, suggesting she might have been seeking revenge or attention. "This is what he does," Emily said, voice tight. "He spins the story to make me the villain." "Yeah, well, the comments online are split," Sarah said. "Half the people think you're a hero. The other half, not so much." Emily closed the newspaper. "He thinks he can intimidate me." "What are you going to do?" Emily straightened. "I'm going to remind Ethan Carter what it's like to be powerless." That evening, she pulled out the dusty lockbox she'd kept hidden for years. Inside were documents, photographs, and letters from her parents' estate. Her hand hovered over one envelope marked with her mother's handwriting. "For Emily. When you're ready." She opened it carefully, unfolding the crisp paper. "My darling Emily," the letter began. "When the time comes for you to step into the world, do it with the grace and strength I've always seen in you. Never let cruelty make you hard. Never let power make you blind. And never, ever forget, the greatest revenge against the heartless is to live with your heart wide open." Emily's eyes blurred with tears. She folded the letter and placed it back in the box. Then she opened her laptop and typed, "Thompson Enterprises, Carter Holdings merger history." The search results loaded, and her pulse quickened. Her family had done business with Ethan's father years ago, and in those dealings, she knew she'd find what she needed to expose Ethan Carter's true foundation, one built not on innovation or merit, but on manipulation and deceit. The next move was hers, and she was ready to play. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the streets slick with a thin sheen of water that reflected the gray sky above. Emily sat at the kitchen table, eyes fixed on her laptop screen. Her search from the night before had led her down a rabbit hole of business transactions, corporate mergers and legal documents, and right there, buried in the archives of a 15-year-old report, was the key she'd been looking for. Carter Hotel's acquisition of Thompson Enterprises, 2009. Her family's real estate division had once owned prime properties across the country, including the land that served as the foundation for Carter Hotel's most successful resorts. The acquisition, according to the documents, had been swift and one-sided. The Thompsons, weakened after the death of Emily's parents, had sold their assets at well below market value, or so it appeared. But there was a footnote, a handwritten signature from Arthur Carter, Ethan's father, and a note that read, "Leverage acquired as planned. Vulnerability exploited to secure ownership." Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her family hadn't simply sold the properties. They'd been targeted, manipulated during their weakest moment. Ethan's father had built his empire on the misfortune of the Thompsons, and now, years later, Ethan Carter had tried to do the same to her. Her phone buzzed beside her, a text from Sarah. "Are you seeing the news? Check Carter Hotel's press release ASAP." Emily opened a news app. The headline blared in bold letters, "Carter Hotels to host exclusive charity auction. A night for new beginnings." She scrolled through the article. The gala was scheduled for next weekend. Proceeds would allegedly benefit youth education programs. A PR stunt, clearly. But what caught her attention was the venue, the Grand Cascade Hotel, the crown jewel of the Carter portfolio, built on land once owned by her family. Emily leaned back in her chair, lips pressed together. Ethan was upping the stakes. Fine, she could play too. Ethan Carter stood in the conference room of his corporate headquarters, arms crossed, watching the PR presentation projected on the wall. The upcoming gala had been repositioned as a celebration of philanthropy, a carefully constructed narrative to overshadow the damage Emily's revelation had caused at the last event. His PR team assured him that public sentiment was shifting. Donations were pouring in. The media was biting the bait. Good, Ethan said, voice clipped. Double security at the event? I don't want surprises this time. Marcus, seated at the far end of the table, smirked, expecting the barista to crash the party again. Ethan's jaw tightened. She's not a barista. She's Emily Thompson, and she's not done with me. You really think she'll try something? Ethan turned away from the projection. I don't think. I know. The night of the gala arrived with a crisp wind that carried the faint scent of salt from the nearby bay. The Grand Cascade Hotel stood illuminated like a monument of excess. Marble columns, glass walls, and golden chandeliers that sparkled like captured starlight. Luxury cars lined the entrance as cameras flashed along the velvet rope. Inside, Ethan moved through the crowd, perfectly tailored suit immaculate, his smile confident. But beneath the surface, tension coiled tight in his chest. Emily hadn't contacted him since the night she'd humiliated him. That silence worried him more than her words had. Relax, Marcus said, handing him a glass of champagne. If she was going to pull something, she'd have done it by now. Ethan said nothing, his gaze sweeping the crowd. Then he saw her. Emily Thompson stood at the top of the marble staircase, the soft light catching the emerald pendant at her throat. She wore a midnight blue dress, elegant but understated. Her hair swept back to reveal sharp cheekbones and eyes that locked onto his with unflinching certainty. Conversations faltered. Heads turned, whispers spread. Ethan's grip on the glass tightened. She came. She descended slowly, heels clicking against the marble with each step. When she reached the bottom, the crowd parted for her without a word. She crossed the room and stopped 3 feet in front of him. Good evening. Ethan, she said, voice calm. Emily. His smile didn't reach his eyes. You like making an entrance, don't you? Only when necessary. He gestured to the bar. Shall we get a drink, or would you prefer to deliver another speech? Not yet, she said, stepping past him toward the ballroom. Let's enjoy the night first. Ethan followed. Pulse racing. She was playing a different game tonight. Less overt, more controlled. It intrigued him and unsettled him. The evening unfolded like a stage production. Waiters glided between guests with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Conversations ebbed and flowed with polite laughter. Ethan kept Emily in his peripheral vision as she moved effortlessly through the crowd, speaking with guests, smiling at reporters, never once showing the discomfort of someone out of place. It was only when the auction began that he realized her true move. The auctioneer stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. We're here to support the education of our future generations. Our first item is a weekend getaway to the Carter Coastal Resort, a landmark property that symbolizes the Carter Hotel's commitment to excellence. Emily stepped forward. Excuse me, she said, her voice carrying through the speakers. The crowd murmured. The auctioneer hesitated. Miss Thompson, she supplied, taking the microphone. Emily Thompson. The silence deepened. This resort, she said, gesturing toward the projected image of the coastal property. Does anyone here know the history of the land it sits on? Eyes shifted toward Ethan, who stood rigid near the front. This property, Emily continued, was acquired by Carter Hotels under questionable circumstances. My family owned this land for generations until my parents' deaths. Afterward, we were targeted during our most vulnerable time. Manipulated, exploited, the crowd gasped. Reporters scrambled to adjust cameras. Ethan strode toward the stage, his heart pounding. Emily, that's enough. She met his eyes. Truth always feels like enough to the ones who fear it. The crowd turned toward Ethan. Emily held up her phone. These documents, she said, voice steady, are proof of the Carter family's tactics. And tonight, I'm donating all proceeds from my family's trust, once siphoned by Carter Hotels, to the very education programs Ethan claims to care about. The applause started hesitantly, but grew, Wave after wave of claps and murmurs of approval. Ethan's face burned. He clenched his fists as she stepped down from the stage and passed him. "This isn't over," he whispered. Emily stopped beside him. "No," she agreed softly. "Now it's your turn to feel powerless." She walked away, leaving Ethan standing alone in the center of a crumbling empire. The cold night air brushed against Emily's skin as she stepped out of the Grand Cascade Hotel, her heart still racing from the moment on stage. The roar of applause echoed faintly behind her, but she didn't stop to revel in it. Her legs carried her to the waiting car as though on autopilot. Once inside, she closed the door, leaned back against the cool leather, and exhaled deeply. She had done it. She had exposed Ethan Carter's carefully constructed empire, not just as a financial powerhouse, but as a legacy built on deceit and exploitation. Her parents' stolen legacy had finally been revealed to the world. And yet, despite the triumph, an unsettling weight pressed against her chest. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Another buzz, and another. Finally, she swiped the screen. 3 missed calls. Sarah, 2 missed calls. Unknown. Her thumb hovered over Sarah's name when a new message appeared from the unknown number. "You shouldn't have done that. Now we both lose." Emily sat up straight. The car seemed to shrink around her. Her gaze darted to the rearview mirror, scanning the streetlights outside. "Ma'am, is everything okay?" the driver asked, glancing back. Emily forced a nod. "Yes, just keep driving." She gripped the phone tighter. The message didn't sound like Ethan. His threats were always laced with arrogance, with a promise of control. This felt different. "Now we both lose." What did that mean? Across town, Ethan Carter sat in his penthouse, a tumbler of scotch untouched on the marble countertop. The blue light from his laptop bathed his face in an eerie glow as he scrolled through the headlines. Carter Hotels accused of exploiting Thompson family's estate. Emily Thompson exposes shady business tactics at Gala. Heir to Carter Empire humiliated again in public showdown. The last headline stung the most. Ethan clenched his jaw, forcing his eyes to keep reading. The articles were relentless. Dissecting his family's history with clinical precision, his father's name was everywhere. Arthur Carter had been a titan in the hospitality industry, a man whose empire had been admired for its efficiency and innovation. Now, thanks to Emily, his father's tactics were under scrutiny. Ethan shut the laptop and stood. The scotch remained untouched. He didn't need alcohol. He needed answers. His phone buzzed. "Marcus, talk to me," Ethan said. "Man, it's bad," Marcus said, voice low. "Investors are spooked. Stocks are down 5% since the gala ended. Reporters are digging through old contracts now. The Thompson deal's all over the news." "Let them dig," Ethan said, pacing toward the window. "They won't find anything illegal. Maybe not illegal, but unethical as hell." Marcus hesitated. "Listen, there's more. Some anonymous source leaked documents to the press about your dad." Ethan stopped cold. "What documents?" "Internal memos, from when Carter Hotels was negotiating with Thompson Enterprises. Stuff about leveraging their tragedy to push through the deal." Ethan's stomach dropped. His father had always been ruthless. But this was calculated cruelty. "And there's one more thing," Marcus added. "Emily Thompson wasn't the source of the leak." The phone slipped slightly in Ethan's grip. "What?" "Yeah, the reporter confirmed it. Emily exposed the deal publicly, but the documents came from someone else." Ethan turned back toward the city skyline. The lights below blurred into a sea of indistinct shapes. Who would leak something like that? "No idea. But if this gets worse, Carter Hotels could go under." Ethan ended the call without responding. He sank into the leather chair by the window, elbows on his knees, mind racing. Emily was smart, but she wasn't a hacker. If she didn't leak the documents, who did? The phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. He answered. "Who is this?" Silence. Then a voice, distorted through a voice changer. "You were warned, Carter." "Warned about what?" "Your father's sins, now yours." The call disconnected. Ethan stared at the screen. Emily sat in her living room, the lights off, watching the rain trace erratic patterns down the window. The pendant at her throat felt heavier than usual. Her mother's words echoed in her head. "The greatest revenge against the heartless is to live with your heart wide open." But how did you do that? When the heartless refused to back down, Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Sarah. Thank God, Sarah said when Emily picked up. I've been losing my mind. Are you okay? I think so, Emily said. I got a weird message after the gala. Someone said, now we both lose. Sarah inhaled sharply. Okay, that's creepy as hell. I know, and it didn't sound like Ethan. What do you mean? His messages are always taunts. This sounded like a warning. Sarah hesitated. I don't like this. You poked a very big, very rich bear. Maybe it's time to step back. Emily squeezed the pendant. I can't. If I stop now, he'll just rebuild and pretend none of this happened. Yeah, but what if someone else is involved? What if you're not just going after Ethan anymore? Emily didn't answer. The next morning, Emily arrived at the cafe early. The usual warmth of the space felt hollow as she flipped the open sign. She ground coffee beans, prepared pastries, and forced herself into the familiar rhythm of work. At 10:15 a.m., the doorbell chimed. Ethan Carter stepped inside. He wore a dark coat over a charcoal sweater, his hair slightly disheveled, his usual arrogance absent. His eyes scanned the room. Landing on her, Emily straightened. We're open, but I doubt you came for coffee. He walked to the counter. Who leaked those documents? She blinked. What? Don't play dumb, he snapped. Someone gave the press confidential memos about my father. It wasn't you. So who was it? Emily crossed her arms. I have no idea. You're lying. If I had those documents, she said, voice steady, I would have used them myself. The tension between them crackled. Finally, Ethan exhaled and raked a hand through his hair. Someone's targeting both of us. Why would anyone target me? She asked. Ethan met her eyes. Because your family's land wasn't the only thing my father took. Emily's heart skipped. What are you talking about? Come with me, he said, voice low. I think there's more to this than either of us knew. She hesitated. Then she grabbed her coat and followed him out the door. The car ride was steeped in thick, unspoken tension. Emily sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her eyes darting toward Ethan as he gripped the steering wheel. His jaw was tight, his gaze locked on the road ahead. The man who once thrived on confidence and control now radiated something foreign. Uncertainty. Where are we going? She asked, breaking the silence. My father's old office, Ethan said without looking at her. After he died, I inherited everything. The company, the properties, his files. But I never really dug through the archives. I trusted that what he built was legitimate. Emily folded her arms. Convenient. Ethan's knuckles whitened against the wheel. Yeah, it was. He exhaled through his nose. But someone else is playing us now. And if they had access to those documents about your family, what else might they have? Emily turned her face toward the window. Seattle's skyline blurred past them. The night she'd exposed Ethan had felt like a victory. Now it felt like she'd disturbed something larger, something she hadn't been prepared to face. They pulled into an underground garage beneath Carter Hotel's corporate headquarters. The concrete walls absorbed the low growl of the engine as Ethan parked in a corner spot. He shut off the car and turned to her. If you want to walk away now, I get it, he said. Emily tightened her jaw. Let's go. They stepped into the elevator. Ethan inserted a key into a hidden slot beneath the floor buttons. The elevator whirred, then descended deeper than Emily expected. Private archives, Ethan explained. My father was paranoid about everything. He didn't trust cloud storage, kept paper records of every deal. The elevator opened into a dimly lit room, lined with rows of metal filing cabinets. The air was stale, tinged with the metallic tang of old paper and ink. Ethan walked to the far corner. Pulling out a drawer marked Thompson Enterprises, 2009, he handed Emily a thick folder. The pages were yellowed but meticulously organized. She scanned the documents, her eyes catching familiar names, her father's, her mother's, and Arthur Carter's. Here, she said, pointing to a memo. This is the signature from the leaked documents. Leverage acquired as planned. Ethan took the page. This handwriting, it's not my father's. Emily's brow furrowed. How do you know? My dad had sharp, angular handwriting. This is smoother, cleaner. He thumbed through the folder until he found another memo with Arthur Carter's authentic signature. The handwriting didn't match. "So who signed this?" Emily asked. Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, frowning. "Unknown number," he answered. "Who is this?" he snapped. "You're too late," a distorted voice replied. "The damage is already done." The line went dead. Ethan cursed and slammed the phone onto the metal cabinet. Emily's heart raced. What the hell is happening? Ethan's gaze hardened. We're being set up. He opened another drawer labeled Board Correspondence. Emily helped him sift through contracts, memos, and reports. After nearly an hour of searching, she found a thick envelope stamped confidential. "Look," she said, handing it to Ethan. He tore it open and removed a single sheet of paper with a typed message. "Mr. Carter, you were warned not to pursue further expansion of the Thompson estate. Our arrangement stands. We assist with the acquisition. You ensure our discretion. If this fails, the fallout will be catastrophic." "Shell." Ethan's face went pale. "Who's HL?" Emily asked. "Harrison Langley," Ethan whispered. "He was my father's legal advisor. Disappeared years ago. I thought he died." Emily clenched her fists. "He didn't just help with the Thompson deal. He's still pulling strings." Ethan stood abruptly. "Come on." They hurried back to the elevator and ascended to the lobby. As they stepped outside, the cold air hit them like a slap. Ethan scanned the street, eyes narrowed. "There," he said, pointing to a black SUV parked across the street. "That car's been following me for days." The SUV's headlights flared to life. "Run," Ethan ordered. Emily didn't hesitate. They sprinted down the sidewalk as the SUV roared forward. Tires screeched against wet asphalt. Ethan pulled Emily into a narrow alley just as the vehicle sped past. The driver's silhouette was barely visible through the tinted glass. They pressed against the wall, hearts hammering. "This is insane," Emily whispered. "Your father's lawyer is spying on you. Why?" "I don't know," Ethan said, voice ragged. "But my guess, he doesn't want us digging deeper." Emily gripped his arm. "We need to go to the police." Ethan shook his head. "Langley's powerful. If he's been operating in the shadows this long, he's got connections. We can't trust anyone. So what do we do?" Ethan exhaled, eyes scanning the empty street. "We hit back." Hours later, they sat in Emily's apartment, laptops open, papers spread across the coffee table. Ethan leaned over the screen, scrolling through legal archives. Emily flipped through old family documents. "Here," she said, pointing to a name on one of her father's ledgers. "HL Holdings. This shell company bought Thompson properties before they were handed to Carter Hotels." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Harrison Langley created a fake company to funnel your family's assets to my father. And now he's targeting us because we uncovered it," Emily said. The weight of the revelation settled between them. "Why go to all this trouble?" Ethan asked. "Carter Hotels is already huge." Emily tapped a section of the document. "This land, it's in eastern Washington, remote. My father started a development project there before he died, something called Project Everstone." Ethan stared at the name. "That doesn't sound like a hotel." "It wasn't," Emily said. "My dad talked about it when I was little. He said it was supposed to be a research campus." "For what?" Emily hesitated. "He never said." The phone on the table buzzed. "Unknown number." Ethan picked it up and put it on speaker. "You don't know what you're playing with," the distorted voice said. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded. Silence. Then, "Everstone was never meant to be found. Walk away, or you'll end up like your father." The line clicked dead. Emily's face drained of color. Ethan met her eyes. "They're scared, which means we're close." Emily swallowed hard. "Yeah, but if they killed your father, what makes you think they won't come for us?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "Because this time, they don't control the board." Emily nodded, fear tightening her chest. They weren't just fighting for justice anymore. They were fighting to survive. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains of Emily's apartment, casting pale, uncertain lines across the wooden floor. She sat on the edge of the couch, eyes heavy from a night spent sifting through documents with Ethan. Across from her, Ethan lay sprawled in the armchair, head tilted back, eyes closed. The events of the past 24 hours weighed on them both like a physical force. Her phone rested on the coffee table, the last call from the unknown number still etched into her thoughts. Everstone was never meant to be found. Walk away or you'll end up like your father. The words echoed in her chest, a reminder that this was no longer about business dealings or corporate rivalries. This was about her family, and about a secret buried so deeply that even her father had never dared to explain it fully. Ethan stirred, running a hand over his face. "What time is it?" he muttered. "Almost 8, she said softly. He sat up, wincing. "Did we find anything useful after I passed out?" Emily shook her head. "No, just more mentions of HL holdings connected to the Everstone property, but nothing that says what it really was." Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Langley's clearly protecting something. If he went through the trouble of stealing your family's land and using it for this, whatever Everstone is, it's important. Dangerous even." Emily rubbed her temples. "And now we're caught in the middle of it." The tension in the room thickened. For years, she had tried to leave her family's fortune behind, building a life that had nothing to do with boardrooms, mergers, or inherited power. And yet, here she was, sitting across from a man who had once humiliated her for his own amusement. Now her reluctant ally in unraveling a conspiracy that had cost her family everything. The phone buzzed. They both froze. Emily reached for it, breath held. Another unknown number. She turned the phone so Ethan could see the screen. "Answer it," he said. She tapped the green icon and put it on speaker. "Hello?" Silence. "Who is this?" she asked, voice shaking. The voice returned, distorted and low. "Everstone is more than you understand. Stop digging. Final warning." Emily swallowed hard. "What is Everstone?" "You don't want to know." "Yes, I do," she shot back. The voice paused. "It was never about hotels." The line went dead. Ethan exhaled sharply. "They're watching us." Emily gripped the phone. "And they know we're close." He stood. "We need to go there, to Everstone. That property's miles from here," Emily said. "We don't know what we'll find." "Exactly. We go now. Before they realize we've figured it out." Emily hesitated, her instincts screaming caution. But her father's voice surfaced in her memory. "When you want the truth, sometimes you have to walk through the dark to reach it." "Okay," she said. "Let's go." They packed quickly. Emily stuffed the files and her laptop into a backpack while Ethan retrieved his car from the garage. 20 minutes later, they were speeding out of Seattle, the city fading into the distance as the highway stretched toward the Cascade foothills. The tension in the car was palpable. Ethan's fingers drummed the steering wheel as the G-piece guided them east. Neither spoke, their thoughts heavy with uncertainty. An hour into the drive, Emily broke the silence. "You never really knew what your father was doing, did you?" Ethan kept his eyes on the road. "No, I thought I did. He taught me how to negotiate, how to close deals. He always said power came from knowing what other people wanted and taking it first." "Sounds familiar," she said, her voice tight. "Yeah," he exhaled. "I followed his blueprint for years, until you showed up and tore it apart." Emily's gaze softened slightly. "Did you ever question it?" "Of course not. Why would I? My whole life was built on his success. Questioning it meant questioning myself." He tapped the wheel. "But now, everything I thought I knew was a lie." The road narrowed as they climbed into the hills. Dense pine forest rose on either side, casting long shadows despite the mid-morning sun. The GPS indicated a turn ahead. "Everstone property in 1 mile," the robotic voice announced. Emily's pulse quickened. "Almost there." The road shifted from smooth asphalt to cracked gravel. Ethan slowed the car as they approached a rusted metal gate, blocking the entrance to a dirt road. A faded sign read, "Everstone Development Site. Authorized personnel only." Ethan killed the engine. "This is it." They stepped out. The cold mountain air smelled of damp pine and wet earth. Emily scanned the woods, half expecting figures to emerge from the shadows. "Let's go," Ethan said, pushing the gate open. The metal creaked, breaking the stillness. They walked along the overgrown path, following tire tracks left in the mud. The trees gave way to a clearing where a large concrete building stood. It had no windows, only a heavy steel door secured with an electronic keypad. Thick cables snaked from the structure into the ground like roots. Emily's heart raced. What kind of development project was this? Ethan approached the door and examined the keypad. "Looks military grade. Emily tried the handle. It didn't budge. "Wait," Ethan said, crouching beside the door. A small plaque was embedded in the concrete. Everstone Initiative. Est. 2007 Purpose. Research and Preservation. Preservation of what? Emily asked. Ethan's phone buzzed. He pulled it out. "Another unknown number," he answered. "Who the hell are you?" The distorted voice responded immediately. "You're standing on history, Carter. Your father built the shell. We built the core." "What core?" Ethan demanded. Silence then. The core of control. Everstone was never about property. It was about influence. Emily's mind raced. Influence, control, land acquisitions. A thought struck her. Ethan. My dad's research. It was on population behavior. Psychological influence. He believed communities could be manipulated if you understood the right levers. Ethan's eyes widened. Everstone isn't a development site. It's a control center. The ground beneath their feet vibrated. The keypad emitted a low beep. The steel door hissed and began to open. Emily stepped back. "They know we're here." Ethan reached for her hand. Too late to turn back now. The door opened fully, revealing a dimly lit corridor leading into darkness. Ethan squeezed her hand. "Ready?" Emily's heart pounded in her ears. "Let's find out what Everstone really is." They stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind them with a metallic clang. The metallic clang of the door reverberated through the dim corridor, sealing Ethan and Emily inside. The air was colder here, carrying a sterile metallic scent that prickled Emily's skin. The faint hum of machinery resonated from somewhere deep within the facility. Their footsteps echoed off the concrete walls as they advanced. Ethan held his phone's flashlight out in front of them. The corridor stretched for several meters. Before opening into a larger chamber, cables lined the walls like veins, converging toward a massive metal door at the far end. Above it, a single word glowed faintly in red. Nexus. Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Nexus," she whispered. "My father mentioned that once." Ethan shot her a glance. "When?" "A few months before the accident," she said, pulse quickening. "He said something about a Nexus protocol, and how it was more dangerous than anyone realized." Ethan stepped closer to the door and examined the control panel beside it. "Looks like biometric access." He pressed his palm against the scanner. The screen flashed red. Access denied. He tried again. Same result. Emily's mind raced. If this was built on Thompson property, maybe it needs my family's credentials. She placed her hand on the scanner. Access granted. The door shuddered and slid open with a low hiss, revealing a cavernous room bathed in pale blue light. Ethan and Emily exchanged wary glances before stepping inside. The space was vast, dominated by a central glass cylinder that stretched from floor to ceiling. Inside the cylinder, a swirling mass of light pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Wires and conduits snaked across the floor, feeding into banks of computers along the walls. Screens displayed lines of code, fluctuating graphs, and real-time monitoring of digital networks. Emily approached the nearest screen and read the header, Population Influence Metrics. Active scan. "What the hell is this?" Ethan asked, voice low. Emily scrolled through the data. These graphs, they're tracking online conversations, social media trends, political discussions, even public sentiment about Carter hotels. Ethan's face paled. "It's a mass influence system. My father was working on behavior modeling," Emily said, voice trembling. "He believed you could predict, and even influence, people's decisions if you understood the right psychological triggers. But he wanted to use it for research, to help communities thrive." She gestured to the swirling light in the core. This is something else." Ethan's jaw tightened. "This is manipulation on a global scale." A nearby screen flickered, and a message appeared in bold letters. "Welcome to Everstone. Control is power." Emily's stomach turned. This is what Langley wanted. Not hotels, not property. Influence. The realization settled like ice in her veins. The Carter Hotel's acquisitions had been a cover. The true objective had always been the Everstone system, a tool to subtly manipulate public opinion, consumer behavior, and even political outcomes. Her family's land had been stolen to serve as the foundation for this digital monster. Ethan stepped toward the central core, eyes locked on the swirling light. My father didn't build hotels. He built an empire of influence. A metallic crackle echoed through the room. Very astute, Mr. Carter, said a voice from the overhead speakers. They both turned toward the sound. You've inherited more than just a hotel chain, the voice continued, smooth and calm. And now, you've seen the true core of your legacy. Langley, Ethan growled, fists clenching, a chuckle. You were never meant to see this, neither of you, but your curiosity forced my hand. Emily's eyes darted to the cameras mounted in the corners of the room. You're watching us. Of course, Langley said. This facility has been operational for over a decade. Every keystroke, every search, every whisper you've exchanged has been logged. The moment you touched that scanner, Mrs. Thompson, you gave us what we needed. Ethan moved protectively in front of Emily. What did you need from her? Langley's voice softened. Her biometric key, you see. Everstone was incomplete without the Thompson signature. Emily's father designed the core with safeguards. Only a Thompson could activate it fully. And tonight, she did. The core's light intensified, the pulses quickening. Emily's knees weakened. No, this can't be happening. You've just unlocked Everstone's full potential, Langley said. Now we can influence populations with unparalleled precision. Elections, markets, public perception, all within our grasp. Ethan rushed to the nearest console, typing furiously. We need to shut it down. That won't work, Langley said. Everstone has already uploaded itself to global networks. You can't stop it now. Emily grabbed Ethan's arm. We can't fight it here. We need to get out, now. The lights in the room shifted from blue to crimson. A warning klaxon blared through the space. He's activating security, Ethan said, eyes wide. They sprinted toward the exit, the floor beneath them vibrating with mechanical life. The door they'd entered began to slide shut. Go! Ethan shouted. Emily dove through the narrowing gap, landing hard on the concrete. Ethan followed, narrowly escaping as the door slammed shut behind him. They ran down the corridor, the klaxon's wail echoing around them. The elevator doors were closing. Wait! Ethan roared. A figure stood inside the elevator. A tall man in a black coat, his face obscured by shadows. Harrison Langley, Ethan hissed. Langley tilted his head slightly as the doors slid closed. No, Ethan lunged, but the elevator ascended out of reach. Footsteps pounded behind them. Go, 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 Emily shouted. They sprinted toward a side corridor as two armed men emerged from the shadows. Bullets ricocheted off the concrete walls. Ethan dragged Emily through a maintenance door, slamming it behind them. They raced up a metal staircase, emerging into a wooded area behind the facility. The SUV they'd seen earlier sat parked on a dirt path nearby. Ethan smashed the driver's side window with a rock. Get in. Emily scrambled into the passenger seat as Ethan hot-wired the ignition. The engine roared to life, and the tires spun in the mud before catching traction. As they sped away from the facility, Emily clutched the dashboard, heart racing. We activated a global control system, Ethan. What do we do now? He gripped the steering wheel. Jaw clenched. We find Langley, and we end this. Emily's phone buzzed in her lap. She glanced down. One new message. Run all you want. Everstone sees everything. The stolen SUV roared along the winding mountain road, headlights slicing through the misty darkness. Emily gripped the door handle, heart hammering as the events of the past hour replayed in her mind. The core of Everstone, the voice of Harrison Langley, the cold realization that she had, with a single touch, activated a global manipulation system. Beside her, Ethan gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles were bone white. His jaw was clenched, eyes locked on the road ahead. The soft glow of the dashboard illuminated the tense lines on his face. We need a plan, Emily said, her voice cutting through the hum of the engine. Ethan exhaled sharply. Yeah, but first we need distance. Langley has eyes everywhere now. He could track us through traffic cams, GPS, even social media chatter. Emily's stomach tightened. He said Everstone had already uploaded itself. If that's true, then it's connected to everything. Everything, Ethan confirmed, nodding grimly. Smartphones, computers, city surveillance systems. If it's online, Everstone can access it. The implications hit Emily like a physical blow. No one would be safe. Misinformation, division, influence. all at Langley's fingertips. "So how do we fight that?" she asked. "We go analog," Ethan said. "No phones, no internet. We find Langley before he solidifies his hold on the system." Emily hesitated, glancing at her phone. The message glared at her. "Run all you want. Everstone sees everything." Her thumb hovered over the power button. She shut the device off and dropped it into the glove compartment. Ethan did the same with his phone. Silence settled between them as the SUV sped deeper into the forested hills. By dawn, they reached a dilapidated gas station on the outskirts of a small town tucked into the Cascade foothills. Ethan parked behind the building, away from the street view. "Stay here," he said, pulling a cap over his hair. Emily opened her mouth to protest but stopped herself. This wasn't a power play. It was survival. She watched as Ethan entered the gas station, reappearing 5 minutes later with a paper map, 2 bottles of water, and a plastic bag filled with energy bars. He climbed back into the car and unfolded the map across the dashboard. "Everstone's main facility is here," he said, pointing to a red dot deep in the woods they'd fled. "Langley won't stay there. He has what he needs. My guess is he'll move somewhere central. Somewhere with direct access to major communication hubs." "Like Seattle?" Emily asked. Ethan shook his head. "Too obvious, Portland, maybe, or..." His finger traced the highway lines. "Spokane, smaller city, less conspicuous, but it's a hub for regional telecommunications." "How do we find him there?" Ethan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "Langley won't hide forever. Everstone's success depends on its ability to steer public opinion. He'll want to make a move soon." Emily bit her lip. "Then we need to figure out his endgame." "Control," Ethan said. "Political, social, economic. Everstone's power lies in subtle influence. If Langley activates its full potential, he can manufacture consent for anything. Elections, policies, even wars." Emily's pulse quickened. "If we can't stop it, then we become puppets in Langley's world," Ethan finished. A heavy silence fell. "We need help," Emily said finally. "We can't do this alone." "Who?" Ethan asked. "The police, government agencies. If Langley has Everstone's reach, he could compromise them too." Emily's mind raced. "What about the press? Independent journalists? If we expose this publicly, he'll flood the web with disinformation before they can react," Ethan countered. Emily clenched her fists. "So we just do nothing?" "No." Ethan folded the map. "We go to Spokane, we find Langley, and we shut Everstone down at its core." The sun was setting when they reached the outskirts of Spokane. Ethan parked the SUV in a deserted lot behind an old textile warehouse. The city stretched beyond them. Quieter than Seattle, but still buzzing with life. They moved through side streets, avoiding main roads and cameras. Ethan led the way, keeping his cap low, while Emily followed close behind. They stopped near a rundown building with a rusted satellite dish on the roof. "This is a data relay center," Ethan said. "Langley might use something like this to patch Everstone into larger systems." They circled the building, finding a side entrance. Ethan jimmied the lock with a pocket knife and they slipped inside. The interior smelled of dust and hot electronics. Rows of servers hummed softly in the gloom. Emily approached a terminal. "It's offline," she said, fingers brushing the keyboard. "Good. That means he hasn't activated it yet," Ethan replied. A creak echoed from the far end of the room. They froze. Ethan gestured for Emily to stay low. He crept toward the noise, body tense. From behind a server rack, a figure emerged. Harrison Langley. He stood with casual ease, dressed in a black coat and gray scarf. His hair was silver, neatly combed back, and his eyes gleamed with something between amusement and triumph. "Well done," Langley said. "You found me faster than I expected." Ethan lunged forward, but Langley raised a small pistol and aimed it at his chest. "Let's not," Langley said smoothly. "I'd hate for this to end prematurely." Emily stood, heart racing. Why? Why did you do this?" Langley smiled faintly. "Power, Ms. Thompson. Real power isn't about wealth or armies. It's about narrative. Control the story, and you control the world." "My father trusted you," Emily said. "Your father was a brilliant man," Langley acknowledged. "But he was naive. He believed knowledge should be used to help people. I showed Arthur Carter what true potential looked like, and he understood." Ethan's fists clenched. "You manipulated my father. I gave him a legacy," Langley said. "And now it's yours to inherit. Or resist. The choice is yours." "Shut it down," Ethan growled. Langley shook his head. "Impossible. Everstone is already online. By tomorrow, public sentiment across the country will shift in ways no one will even notice. They'll think their opinions are their own." Emily's eyes darted to the servers. A blinking terminal caught her attention. A manual override slot. Langley followed her gaze. His eyes narrowed. "Don't," he warned. Emily's adrenaline surged. She lunged for the console. The gunshot cracked like thunder. Pain seared through her shoulder. But she didn't stop. Her fingers slammed the override keys. "No!" Langley roared. Ethan tackled him to the ground as Emily's vision blurred from the pain. The override process raced across the screen. System purge initiated. Langley threw Ethan off, scrambled toward the console. But it was too late. The core's pulse faltered, then died. The servers went dark. Langley staggered back, eyes wide with disbelief. "You don't know what you've done." Emily cradled her bleeding shoulder, breathing hard. "Stopped you." Langley's lips curled into a snarl. "This isn't over." He bolted for the exit. Ethan leaped to his feet to chase him, but Emily caught his wrist. "Let him go," she gasped. "We did what we needed to." Ethan hesitated. Then he knelt beside her, pressing his jacket against her wound. The servers were silent. The system was gone, but so was Langley. The sterile hum of fluorescent lights filled the emergency room as Emily lay on a narrow hospital bed, her shoulder wrapped in thick gauze. The bullet had passed cleanly through, missing any major arteries. But the pain was a persistent, dull throb that flared with every movement. The room smelled of antiseptic and worn plastic, a stark contrast to the cold, metallic air of the Everstone facility that still haunted her senses. She blinked against the brightness, struggling to focus. Across the room, Ethan stood near the window, his silhouette rigid, eyes fixed on the parking lot below. His clothes were stained with her blood, his jaw tight. "Anything?" she asked, voice hoarse. He turned, relief flickering across his face before the tension returned. "No sign of Langley. I've checked the news, social media. Nothing." Emily shifted, wincing. "You think he got away clean?" Ethan rubbed his temples. "Langley's smart. He had an exit plan the moment we stepped into that data center. Everstone's core is gone, but that doesn't mean he's done." Emily pressed her head back against the pillow, exhaustion washing over her. "We stopped the system, though. That's what matters." "Yeah," Ethan said, though the word carried no conviction. The system was gone. That much was true. The servers at Everstone had been wiped, their intricate algorithms purged from existence, but Langley was still out there. And someone like Langley never disappeared without a plan. A nurse entered, checked Emily's vitals, and left without a word. Ethan sat down in the chair beside her bed, running a hand through his hair. "You need rest," he said. Emily gave a weak smile. "You do too." Later, his gaze softened. "You were incredible back there," she swallowed. "I was terrified, but you did it anyway." She reached for his hand. He hesitated for a moment, then clasped it, his warmth grounding her. They sat in silence for several minutes until Emily's eyes drifted shut. Sleep came in fragments, flashes of Langley's voice, the pulsing light of the Everstone core, her father's voice warning her about Nexus. When she finally woke, hours had passed. Ethan was gone. Her heart lurched. She pushed herself up with her good arm, pain flaring through her shoulder. The chair where Ethan had been sitting was empty, but a folded piece of paper lay on the side table. She picked it up with trembling fingers. "Emily, I had to go. Langley won't stop, and I can't sit here waiting for him to make his next move. I need to track him down before he finds another way to rebuild Everstone. You're safe here, don't follow me. I'll end this. I promise, Ethan." Emily's throat tightened. "Damn it, Ethan," she whispered. She swung her legs over the bed, wincing at the pull in her shoulder. Her clothes, washed and neatly folded, sat on the chair. She dressed slowly, biting back tears of pain. The hospital corridors blurred past her as she moved toward the exit. The night air outside hit her like ice. Ethan's SUV was gone. Her phone was still in the glove compartment of her own car, parked a few blocks from the cafe. She flagged a taxi, her mind spinning with possibilities. Ethan was going after Langley alone, and she had no idea where. Ethan drove through the night, Langley's words looping in his head. Everstone was never about property. It was about influence. He knew the man too well to believe that losing the core had ended the game. Langley wasn't the kind of person to build a system without contingencies. He crossed the state line into Idaho just as dawn broke, stopping at a gas station to stretch and grab coffee. A television mounted near the ceiling played a news broadcast. In breaking news, authorities in Spokane are investigating a mysterious explosion at a data relay center last night. Officials confirmed the site had been compromised, with sophisticated technology linked to potential surveillance operations. No suspects have been named. The screen shifted to a grainy security image. Ethan's own face stared back at him. Police are seeking these individuals as persons of interest in the investigation. Witnesses reported seeing them fleeing the scene before the explosion. Ethan cursed under his breath. Langley was setting them up. Everstone was gone, but now the narrative was that he and Emily were criminals. He grabbed his coffee and returned to the car. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Langley. The voice, smooth and amused, responded immediately. Very good, Mr. Carter. I was wondering how long it would take. You're framing us. Framing? Langley chuckled. No, Ethan. I'm telling the story. You were taught how narratives shape perception. Consider this a masterclass. Ethan's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Why are you doing this? Because power, real power, never dies. Everstone was just a tool. There are others. And you and your friend, Miss Thompson. You're loose ends. Come for me. Langley, leave her out of this. The line went silent for a moment. That's noble, Langley said. But it's not how the game works. Goodbye, Ethan. The call disconnected. Ethan threw the phone onto the passenger seat and floored the accelerator. Emily returned to her apartment to find the door ajar. Her heart raced. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The living room was ransacked. Cushions slashed, drawers emptied, papers strewn across the floor. The scent of cologne lingered in the air. A single object was left on the coffee table. Her father's pendant. She picked it up with trembling fingers. The chain was snapped. A folded note lay beneath it. Everstone was the beginning. Next time, we won't miss. Her knees gave way. She sat on the floor, clutching the pendant as her mind spiraled. Her phone buzzed from the floor where it had been tossed. She snatched it up. Ethan? She gasped when he answered. Emily, he said, voice strained. Langley's setting us up. The police think we bombed the relay center. I know, she said, voice breaking. He was here. He left a message. He's not done. Where are you now? Ethan demanded. My apartment. Get out now. Go somewhere public and stay visible. I'll find you. The line disconnected. Emily stuffed the pendant into her jacket pocket and ran. The street outside was empty. Too empty. A black sedan idled near the curb, engine humming softly. She turned to run the other way. The car's tires screeched as it accelerated toward her. Emily sprinted across the street. Dodging between parked cars, the sedan swerved to block her. A figure stepped out, tall, wearing a black coat. Langley. She turned and bolted toward a nearby alley. Footsteps pounded behind her. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps as the pain in her shoulder flared. A van screeched to a halt at the alley's end. The side door slid open. Strong hands grabbed her, a cloth pressed against her mouth. The chemical scent filled her lungs. The world blurred. Darkness swallowed her. Emily woke to the rhythmic hum of tires against pavement. Her head throbbed, and her mouth tasted of chemicals. The scent of leather and disinfectant filled her nostrils. She was lying on her side, wrists bound with zip ties, ankles similarly restrained. The cold metal of her father's pendant pressed against her chest beneath her jacket. The van rocked as it rounded a curve. Emily opened her eyes slowly. The interior was dimly lit by the faint glow of a dashboard screen. Two men sat in the front seats, their faces partially obscured by shadows. A voice crackled from a speaker mounted near the dashboard. Is she awake? The voice was unmistakable. Langley. Looks like it. One of the men replied. Emily shifted, testing her restraints. The plastic ties bit into her skin. Her shoulder ached, the bandage beneath her shirt damp. She forced herself to breathe evenly. The speaker crackled again. Hello, Mrs. Thompson. I imagine you're confused, disoriented. Don't worry. You'll have answers soon. She swallowed hard and said nothing. You're smarter than I gave you credit for, Langley continued. Activating Everstone's purge protocol was impressive, but ultimately pointless. Emily clenched her jaw. You lost. The system's gone. Langley's laugh was low and unhurried. Is it? Everstone's core was wiped, yes. But we built redundancies, fail-safes. Did you really think I'd leave a project of this magnitude vulnerable to a single point of failure? Emily's stomach dropped. You're lying. Am I? Langley said. Look out the window. The man in the passenger seat yanked a cord, raising a black curtain that covered the van's side window. Emily squinted into the morning light. The landscape had shifted to industrial sprawl. Warehouses, cranes, and satellite dishes lined the horizon. In the distance, a sleek glass tower rose above the others. Its reflective surface mirrored the gray sky. The tower's logo gleamed near the top. Nexus Comm Systems. Langley's voice returned. Everstone was a prototype. Nexus Comm is the deployment model. The core you destroyed was merely a seed. The full system will go live tonight. By morning, public discourse across the continent will be redirected, reframed, rewritten. Emily's pulse raced. You can't control everyone. Not everyone, Langley said. Just enough. Enough to sway elections. Enough to shift markets. Enough to ensure no one asks the right questions ever again. The van slowed. Turning onto a gravel road lined with security cameras, Emily's heart hammered in her chest. She knew what came next. They were heading to the tower. She had triggered Everstone's destruction, and now Langley needed her to unlock Nexus Comm, just as her biometric data had once opened Everstone's core. The van passed through a gated checkpoint. Armed guards in black uniforms watched from both sides. Emily's mind raced. She was running out of time. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, eyes locked on the sedan. Weaving through traffic 3 blocks ahead, he'd arrived at Emily's apartment minutes after the abduction. The tire tracks, the shattered phone on the pavement, and the surveillance footage he'd accessed from a nearby store left no doubt. Langley had her. He followed at a safe distance, watching the black sedan turn onto an access road toward an industrial complex. The glint of the Nexus Comm logo made his gut clench. That's where they're taking her. He parked his car at the base of a hill overlooking the facility and pulled out his father's old .38 revolver from the glove compartment. He had never fired it outside of a shooting range, but tonight wasn't about skill. It was about survival. The van stopped in an underground garage beneath the Nexus Comm tower. The back doors opened, and rough hands dragged Emily out. She stumbled, the pain in her shoulder flaring. The guards pushed her toward a steel door. Langley was waiting. He wore a charcoal suit, immaculate as always. His silver hair combed back. His smile was thin. Welcome to the future, Mrs. Thompson! Emily spat at his feet. You're a parasite! Langley chuckled. Perhaps, but parasites thrive when the host is complacent, and humanity is nothing if not complacent. He nodded to the guards. They cut the zip ties but kept their weapons trained on her. Langley gestured toward the elevator. After you. Emily hesitated. Then she stepped inside. The ride was silent. The elevator ascended with mechanical precision until it opened into a control room filled with consoles, holographic displays, and walls lined with monitors. Each screen displayed live feeds, protests, markets, newsrooms. Threads of information scrolled beneath each image, charting patterns of engagement and sentiment. In the center of the room stood a cylindrical chamber, smaller than Everstone's core, but pulsing with familiar rhythmic light. Langley approached the main console. Everstone was ambitious, he said. Gesturing to the chamber. But Nexus Comm is elegant, efficient. It no longer just observes sentiment. It shapes it in real time. He turned to Emily. Place your hand on the scanner. She shook her head. No. Langley sighed. Do you think this is a negotiation? He motioned toward a nearby screen. A live video feed appeared. Emily's chest constricted. The footage showed Sarah, her best friend, bound to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. A masked figure stood behind her. If you don't comply, Langley said, voice soft. She dies. Emily's legs nearly gave out. Tears burned her eyes. You're a monster, she whispered. Langley smiled faintly. I'm pragmatic now. The scanner. Emily's vision blurred as she stepped toward the console. The scanner glowed, waiting. Her hand hovered above it. Think, Emily. Think. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. Sometimes the answer isn't to stop the system. It's to overload it. She placed her palm on the scanner. The core hummed louder. Data streams cascaded across the monitors. Good girl, Langley murmured. Emily's fingers hovered over the keyboard beside the scanner. She typed a command her father once mentioned. Dakshar override, Dachar's cascade. The core vibrated. Langley's eyes narrowed. What are you? The chamber's pulse accelerated. The screens filled with distorted images as the system overloaded. Langley lunged for her. A gunshot shattered the room. Langley staggered back, blood spreading across his shoulder. Ethan stood in the doorway, gun smoking. Step away from her, he said, advancing. The guards raised their weapons. Emily hit another key. The room lights flared, and the core released a low, pulsing burst. The guards clutched their heads, disoriented. Ethan fired again, hitting one in the leg. The other fled. Langley reached for a sidearm. Ethan fired, and the bullet struck Langley's hand. The weapon clattered to the floor. The core crackled with energy. Nexus comm is collapsing, Emily said, voice trembling. We need to go. Ethan grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the elevator. The chamber behind them roared as the core overloaded. They reached the garage just as an explosion rocked the tower. Flames burst from the upper floors. Alarms blared. Ethan helped Emily into a car and floored the accelerator. The building behind them convulsed as the core detonated. They didn't stop until they reached the highway. Only then did Ethan speak. Is it gone? Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yeah, it's gone. He squeezed her hand. We did it. She clutched her pendant. For my dad. For everyone. In the rearview mirror, flames consumed the tower. The final gasp of Langley's ambition. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that shadows like Langley never vanished completely. Somewhere, beyond the smoke, she knew he was still watching.